Yeah, this is Anne Crinnion here in Mill Lane in my house. Well, as I approach my 80th birthday, which happens on Christmas Eve, I'm looking back on my life and memories, and all good, thank God. We had ups and downs on the way, but anyway, I was born here in Mill House, beside where I live now, in 1941 on Christmas Eve. And we met Ray in 1960, and we got married in 1967. This whole complex here was a mill which was taken down. My father bought the property in 1939. The mill was taken down the year I was born, so I don't actually remember the mill. But my late husband Ray and I made a house out of one of the outbuildings of the mill across from where I live now, and we had 27 happy years there when he died suddenly in 19th of February 1995. It was a massive heart attack, and he died at home in the kitchen. The 6 children were in the house. 3 were in the house when it happened, and 3 were there within minutes. So he had no will made, and it dragged on for 2 years, but the boys were wonderful and they kept the business going. So I continued on living in that house, and when the Breed got married, which was the last one to leave, I was there in that big rambly house on my own, and then Mary had already been married to Mickey, and they were back living in Mill House here where I was born. They owned that property, and it was suggested. I was wondering what's going to happen beyond, because it was too big for me. Anyway, Thomas was interested in coming back, and Vera, and they came back to live there. And they built me this house here, which was the cowshed of Mill House. So, and I also had my dark room in there because I was a photographer, freelance photographer, since the early 60s, 60. Well, the photography business was an accident. I had to leave school early because I got rheumatic fever and I was very sick for some months. I started driving when I was 17, and my father had got the first family car. So his breathing was very bad, and I used to drive him to work and back and help him in his office a bit and drive him to the courts. The courts would be out in Longwood and Beliver and Crossakeel and Athboy, and he'd have to travel to those courts. He didn't drive himself. But sometimes District Justice Beattie would bring him, but a lot of the time I would go and help. And that's where I was deciding what I might try to do something with my life. And I had started to, my brother, who was working in Cassidy's of Georgia Street, he was an accounts manager there, and I was always into drawing and into making models and things like that. So I started doing commercial art just here at home, and got the Indian ink and the pens and all that. And the family came across my sketches there recently when they were doing renovations up in the attic. So that was kind of all interesting. But at the same time, my brother Matt bought a good camera, a Ricoh Flex twin lens reflex camera. I started using the camera, and in no time at all, anyway, I was doing weddings and everything, and had my dark room and was developing and printing. Of course, it was all in the days of black and white. I had a great career at that, really, because it was my social life as well as my work life. But for my 70th birthday, which was 10 years ago, I brought out a book entitled 50 Years Through the Eye of the Camera. And in it I have about 500 photographs of things I attended down the years. Unfortunately, I got macular degeneration. I think it started about 8 years ago. And I'm visually impaired now. In fact, I'm technically blind. I can't read at all, which is a big cross to me. But nevertheless, I'm managing very well, and I have peripheral vision, and I hope that maintains. But the book was really a great success, and people got great pleasure out of it. And it was never really about making money, but the joy it brought people. And one man stopped me on the street and he said, "I can't believe it." He said, "We'd no picture of me mother, and she's in your book." So I mean, that was a wonderful thing for, In the beginning I kept newspaper cuttings, but you're like, when I had all the children then I had no time to be doing that. So some clips from the Chronicle in it as well, and pages from the paper, and you know, the stories, the pantomimes in the early 60s, and anyway, which I was a member of the pantomime too. So when life had ups and downs, it was a great thing that the children turned out so well and healthy, and you know, that's everything really. So I've 19 grandchildren now and just one great grandchild, Bonnie, and it's wonderful really to see the family living on. For my 80th now, I'm working on I'm not working on it, I'm not able to work on it, but it's put together a book of my poetry. In 2003, I went back to art and did a FETAC art, and that led to, we stayed together as a group, and I paint every week still. Well, I'm painting what I can't see, but anyway, I'm enjoying it. But I painted a lot, and some of my paintings, and then in 2006, I think it was, I joined Boyne Writers, and that's where I rekindled my love of poetry and started writing poetry. They're not any great literary works of art, but they're my poems and they're my paintings, and I'd like to have some of them recorded into a book to hand down to my grandchildren and great-grandchild, and I'm sure there'll be more great-grandchildren. And this one now is my husband, the horse. Ray painted that, because when we got married first, we both painted, and of course, when we had the children then and business, we had no time for painting. So I didn't paint then until 2003, but I'm delighted I have that one. Trim was a different town then. I was the youngest of 4 children, and sure, it was a very rural town then. I think the population was 1,400, and they used to say 200 of those are in St. Joseph's, which was originally the old workhouse. Of course, it's a wonderful unit now, and it was always good, but I mean, my own mother died there in 1986. She got wonderful care there just for about 2 years. But so I mean, things have progressed. We had the mill race, and the mill race flowed in front of the door there until 1970 when Boyne Drainage started, and then that did away with the mill race, which in one way was very sad to see going, but in another way, we were flooded twice. 1954 on the 8th of December and the 19th of November 1965. My father died in October, and a month later we were flooded. So the whole house would be up 4 steps of the stairs. It was an awful time. Even with climate changing, with the Boyne Drainage, I hope it won't happen again. In 1952, I think it was, my father complained to the council about them rising the road, the far side of the bridge. There used to be slipways there down to the river, and when a circus had come to town, the horses and the animals would all be driven down there and they'd go for a drink. But anyway, the council raised the ground, and my father complained them rising, because he said the floods go out there, and if the floods don't go out there, where are they going to come? So in 54 we were flooded. That's exactly what happened. The waters couldn't go out the far side, and they came out our side. And there were only fields the far side of that now, where Aldi's is, and that was Egan's paddock when I was young. Egan's is where Rosemary's Cafe is in Emmett Street now. So it's changed times, but it's all for the better really, you know. The only sad part is that there's so much drugs and everything around, you know. There was always a bit of drink, but you could only drink so much. But I think the drug situation is everywhere now, as the country ruined really. And it's awful hard for people rearing families, I think. Anyway, you worry, and all we can do is keep saying the prayers and hope for the best. And that's my brother Matt, and he's kind of well known, Matt Gilson, for singing. My maiden name was Gilson. Paintings in a quirky style, I call them. They're kind of just, and I just brought them out as prints, and sold quite well.
So some nice paintings.
I don't know if you ever heard of T.P. McKenna, did you? He was a film star. He's not that long dead, but that's a painting at his funeral I did. There was a film crew up here in the very place that came and wanted to film me. and it was on. It was a television channel. I don't know what channel it was. I don't think it's in existence anymore. It turned out very well.
Oh, I think
She was talking to me, the lady.
it's cool.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's more or less it.
More was it?
No, that's it, is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I could have put on more light. There's a light there over here.
No, I like this. I like this.
Is it alright?
Yeah.